of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Conley,
Present.
Councilmember Losi,
Here.
Councilmember Mobley,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Trent.
Here. We have no presentations or proclamations, so we'll go to oral public from the comment, or oral comment from the public. Anybody who has a comment that's not on the agenda tonight would come up to speak. You have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. We have the City Council minutes, report of disbursements, City of Fortuna basic financial statement audit, authorizing an application for grant funds for Habitat Conservation Fund grant, plug-in vehicle charging network grant. Anybody have any comments or want to pull any on those?
Move to approve consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to City Council business. Our first business is approve the full-time, part-time classification pay rate schedule for fiscal year 2023-24, Resolution 2023-16, and Resolution 2023-17. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Trent. Normally, I'll point out our city clerk and human resources director would be presenting this, but she's off on vacation, and so we have Buffy, our deputy city clerk here, and I'll be presenting the staff report. I'll just give you a brief summary of what's in the staff report, but essentially the full-time pay classification rate schedule reflects the changes for both of the city's bargaining units, including the Fortuna Police Employees Association and the Fortuna Employees Association. Both bargaining units and the city agreed to those memorandums of understanding for 2-year terms on April 1st, 2022, to go from April 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. As a part of that, the FPEA received a 12% cost of living for the first year, which was implemented in its entirety that year. The FEA's MOU provided an 8% COLA the first year, which was implemented on April 1st, 2022. The second year includes a 2% COLA increase to the base pay effective July 1st, 2023. So that's the change that's incorporated into this pay rate schedule, and that is the last increase that will be added as a result of those MOUs during this 2-year cycle. And those are appropriated into the 2023-2024 draft budget that our finance director has put together and will have later in this agenda for approval. And it's also included as attachment A. One other proposed change that was not brought to the council previously is a recommendation to reclassify the recreation program supervisor from step number F20 to F23. This recommendation was based on an assessment of the position and takes into consideration the level of responsibility, number of employees managed, high level of decision-making required, and overall management of the position. It's also recommended that the council approve making the position a FLSA exempt position, which would change the position from that of an hourly pay rate to a salaried pay rate. It would also exclude the position from accruing overtime. Based on the needs of the flexible needs of the recreation program, this position's work is required in evening and weekend hours, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeking that status change. The proposed change has been included in attachment A as option 2. If for some reason the council does not elect to proceed with staff's recommendation, then there's option 1 that can be used in the motion, and it would exclude that. And then there's a breakdown of what that reclassification would mean. There's a table in the staff report, and it shows what those changes would roughly be, but the approximate increase per year is about $2,500. So with that, that's really the fiscal impact. The fiscal impacts associated with these proposed changes have been incorporated in the 2023 budget and are reflected in the budget adoption of the staff report, including in this meeting packet. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
Any questions from council?
I just have a question for Cameron, our Parks and Rec director, if I could. I know one of the things that was looked at with the position was coming up with programs, which there's been some of those, participation, and whether that's gone up and how, if revenues are going up. Those things right there is just, and my perception is that, yeah, it is. But I just wanted to know from your end, looking at the books and.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, the answer is yes to those. Yes, participation is way up. I would say it depends on the program, but certainly for some of our major programs, like the skate program, for sure. And then, you know, Aaron, I know has pointed out in the past too, the increase in revenue. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, this last fiscal year, and this was mostly due to the skate program, we generated $60,000 more in revenue than what was projected. So yes, we are increasing our revenue. There's a lot more activity within the bulk of all of our programs, and, you know, our recreation supervisor is a big part of that. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of passion to, you know, take a position that doesn't really pay a whole lot of money and, you know, really try to rally the community and increase that participation and get people interested in your programs, and to develop and change those existing programs to improve them. And that's one of our main goals, is to take what we've already had, improve them, and then create some new opportunities for people. So I would say for sure your recreation supervisor is absolutely doing that.
We're not in it to make money, but we are in it to pay for ourselves.
Absolutely. So $2,500 to me, you know, in the grand scheme of making an additional $60,000 over the projected revenue, I think is a small piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson, too, I might remind you, we did have the workshop where our recreation program supervisor and parks director came through, and they, and for the public's benefit, they presented all of the programs that the recreation program is presenting, what the what the anticipated costs are and what the revenue is from them. So that's something we did review at a special workshop with the council previously. And I will say that this came up, so we did reclassify this position as a part of the last budget cycle, and I take responsibility for bringing this change back and really spending some time and looking at this position and the level of responsibility. You know, through the course of these budget workshops, it was just really clear to me that there was an equivalent level of responsibility and just the managing. There's so many, there's a constant influx of, applications. So there's a pretty big supervisory component. Cameron, how many part-time folks do we have right now?
In the summer, we have up to 25 part-time staff that one person is responsible for supervising. It's a lot of staff.
So the human resource workload of just bringing all those people, doing all the interviews, bringing those folks on, overseeing them, coming up with SOPs. It might sound like a simple position, recreation program supervisor. Let's just get everybody here and have those summer fun programs. But really, the level of responsibility is quite high, and the higher expectation of the public for safety and enrichment and all the things that are happening in the park. So I brought this back, and typically I don't like to bring reclassifications back with the budget. Really, it causes unforeseen kind of wrinkles throughout city staff, and so it's something that we really try to avoid. But really, this is something that I felt was worth including in this budget after really spending quite a bit of time looking at the responsibility level over the past 6 months.
And then also, to make it a competitive position, I know I've brought comparisons to city council before as far as what other agencies pay our recreation supervisors. And even with the reclassification, our recreation supervisor will still be making less than other recreation supervisors from City of Eureka or City of Arcata. Thanks.
Is that it? Yep.
I kind of struggled with this increase from the F20 to F23 classification step number. This was, relatively speaking, a fairly new position that the city just developed a couple of years ago. So I had my concerns about now increasing, especially like Merritt said, when we just did reclassify the position. But in looking over the classification under F20, I'm looking at the recreation program supervisor, and along with that position, the other classifications are park maintenance worker, 2, street maintenance worker 2, and utility worker. If you skip down to F23, where the proposed step is located, you have Recreation Transit Administrative Supervisor and Administrative Assistant. So I think as far as the classifications go, this particular position fits better in F23 with regard to what those positions do, the supervision that those positions have, as opposed to maintenance workers and utility workers. So that was my only observation with that particular position. And I think it's, with regard to the number of people that are supervised by this position, then I think it's warranted.
Any other? No? My concern was, as I do understand the position has a lot of responsibility, but it's not the only position in the city that's underpaid. There's quite a few that actually should be moved up, and I have a hard time doing one position, especially since it was moved less than a year ago, already moved up, and everybody's going to get on this is going to get a 2% raise anyway. I do understand it being exempt. When we brought the position on, it was supposed to be flexible, so there was no overtime. Well, that hasn't happened. I do definitely feel it should be exempt, but I don't feel that it's fair to the other employees who should also be brought up. And the recreation budget, or the recreation budget, is going the wrong way. It's, it's not making the money, it's going deeper and deeper in the red. And so that's why I have a hard time with this, wanting to add this one. So that's all I have to say. Mm-hmm.
I agree with what you're saying, and I know I'm very new to this position. I think it looks like the position, not she, the position was started at the wrong category. And I don't think that position should be penalized, and other department heads maybe should look at their positions and see what they need to do for the future budget. But I think in this case, it
started lower. It was brought up quite a bit last year, and so it's being asked to be brought up again. But so it was raised last year to bring it up.
To me, it just looks like a reasonable amount.
Yeah, and you really, in hindsight, Mayor Trent, if I could just provide one more comment. Before, it was paid below the facility custodian, and I just think we didn't go far enough last time. And again, really, this just came up.
I completely understand all of that, but I just, we have a hard budget, and we have a lot of employees that are underpaid, in there. And so that's what I have a hard time with doing this. And the recreation department is going deeper and deeper into the red, so that's my only problem with it. I think we need to start concentrating on trying to make it go the other way.
Well, I think a lot of the fees that we talked about with regard to increasing recreation fees, as well as the fees for the River Lodge usage and Monday Club usage, will bring those up a little bit better. Recreation, I think as a council, we pretty much agreed that we're not going to get a dollar for dollar payback or revenue for recreational fees for those recreational programs. I think it's one of those, not necessarily the business part of the city, but those activities that we offer for the residents, or for anybody. So I don't think that it's ever going to be a dollar for dollar revenue recovery. And so I don't have a problem with that as far as. I think the actual overtime that was earned in this position up to this month in this fiscal year was only $1,065 total. So that amount of money isn't excessive. Also, Aaron, the new budget that we're looking at, 23-24, was this raise incorporated into that budget?
I did not take that into account, but I also didn't take into account some of the fee increases that we talked about. So like you said, for the most part, those are going to cancel out as long as the next item, the fee schedule, is approved as well as presented. So I wouldn't, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If that's all the discussion, do we have a motion?
Do we want public comment?
Oh, sorry. Open public comment. Anybody in the public like to say anything? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 2023-16, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the full-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2023-24 for option 1.
And so option 2 is the one with the increase. I think it's backwards.
Oh, it's backwards? Okay,
Yeah.
well, option 2.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Conley,
Abstain.
Councilmember Johnson, or excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley,
Yes.
Mayor Trent.
No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
So I just want to, our city attorney's pointing out that there was 2 resolutions, so let's see.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll need to do a motion for the part-time as well.
Oh,
'Cause we have
okay.
another resolution for part-time as a separate.
I make a motion to conduct first reading of ordinance 2023-761 by title only and continue public hearing to June 20th,
What do
2023.
where are you?
Isn't that it?
No.
Oh,
It's the second part on 5A.
yeah, but we're ready for the other one. Wrong,
So at the bottom of the staff report, it has the second
Yeah.
resolution listed.
all right, motion to adopt resolution 2023-17 and read by title only.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Resolution 2023-17, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the part-time classification and pay rate schedules for fiscal year 2023 and through 2024. Councilmember Conley,
Aye.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Trent.
Yes. Okay, our next item is a public hearing to consider the adoption of, is that the Myron Light one? Yeah. Adoption of the rates and fees for city services, Resolution 2023-13. Staff report?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. So this is the formal public hearing to adopt our rates and fees for city services throughout the city. Staff presented the proposed fee schedule for discussion to the City Council at 2 special workshops, the first one on May 8th and the second one on May 15th. Several action items came from those discussions, including changes to the recreation fee schedule and the River Lodge and Monday Club fee schedule. Those changes that were discussed have been incorporated into the attached fee schedule to the staff report. And so just a quick overview for the public's knowledge of what's included in this proposed fee schedule for next fiscal year. In the building fee schedule, there's an overall increase to all building services and fees of 6%. In the parks fee schedule, we included adjustments to private and public skating fees. In the recreation fee schedule, we increased the hot shots fees, increased adult league and tournament field use. We added a new youth league field fee. We increased the Newburgh concession stand rental fee and increased the summer fun kiddie camp and break program fees. In the police fee schedule, we increased the unneutered dog license fees. And finally, in the River Lodge and Monday Club fee schedule, We did an overall increase to the River Lodge rental fees, Monday Club fees, wedding package fees, and an increase to the deposit. So the various fees and rates for these services do have a direct financial impact on city revenues, and these changes that are included in this staff report will be incorporated into the fiscal year 23-24 budget, which is our next item. And so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Council have any questions? None? Okay. We'll open public comment. Anybody in the public have any questions? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-13 and read by title only.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Resolution 2023-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna establishing a schedule of fees and charges for administrative, building, community development, parks, recreation, police, River Lodge and Monday Club, transit, and water and wastewater within the City of Fortuna for fiscal year 2023-2024. Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Councilmember Losi?
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Trent?
Yes. Okay, we're getting right through these. Okay, the next one is the adoption of the 2023-24 budget. Do we have a staff report on this?
Yes, so good evening again, Honorable Mayor and City Council. So like the fee schedule, we held a couple special workshops to discuss the budget. The first one was held on April 24th, where staff presented the general fund budget and reviewed overall revenues and expenditures in depth with the City Council. And then the second workshop held on May 8th. City staff focused on our enterprise funds, which includes water, wastewater, and transit. And so staff is pleased to present a balanced budget for fiscal year 23-24. Staff prepared the budget with the intent of providing the maximum amount of services to the community while still presenting a balanced budget, which we were able to achieve. And so just a quick summary, the general fund as presented is proposed to have a net surplus of $205 after the one-time American Rescue Plan Act COVID monies that are going to the Police Operations Division facility upgrade project are taken out. The general fund in Measure E will have a combined total operating expenses of $12,568,000. 924,000 of those are for project rollovers, and project rollovers are for things that were budgeted in this current fiscal year that we just haven't gotten to, and so we're moving those expenses to next fiscal year. And so if there's any additional information or questions for staff, we're happy to answer those, but that concludes my report.
Any questions from council? No? Okay, we'll open public comment. Anybody from the public like to speak? Okay, we'll close public comment. We have a motion.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 2023-18 and read by title only.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Resolution 2023-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting the City of Fortuna's annual operating budget for fiscal year 2023-24. Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Councilmember Losi?
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Trent?
Yes.
And maybe just a comment to not only you folks here, and most of you understand this, but a lot of folks watching in TV land. We've had on all of these, it looks like we're going through these really fast and approving these really quickly, but we have seen all this and we've asked the questions and we've made some changes, to the budget, to the fee schedule and all of these things. So it's not like we're just passing these with a stamp of approval without knowing what we're doing, so.
We've had multiple workshops on these.
Many.
hours of workshops.
So anyway, just to let everybody know.
Okay, our next item of business is to approve the 2023 five-year capital improvement program. Staff report, please.
Excellent. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I am going to pull up a screen share here really quickly. So yes, it is my pleasure to be here tonight to talk about the final draft 2023-24 fiscal year capital improvement program, specifically the five-year capital improvement program. So as our finance director had mentioned, this is an area where we had previous discussions and kind of talked about the draft capital improvement program. I believe it was the special budget workshop on May 8th. So I will be brief, but kind of wanted to hit the high notes, just to allow folks watching in TV land or here tonight to be able to, understand what we're working on and where we're going and what some of the exciting things, city staff is hoping to deliver to the city this year and beyond. So in summary, from changes from the previous document, there was one project that has been completed and removed from this CIP to the one before. 6 other projects were removed without completion. There are a number of smaller projects that, were believed to be needed at one time. We may have found other ways to complete them, or we may have, found ways to do certain things in-house and we didn't need to have them in there anymore. So that's where projects like that go away. We have 5 new projects that were added into this year's capital improvement program. And lastly, since the last special budget workshop, we did present this to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did find that this CIP, which it would include projects that rolled over from last year, in addition to the 5 projects that were added, they were determined consistent with the goals and guidelines and policies of the city's general plan. So moving on to the one project that was fully removed from this year's capital improvement program, it is the city's Jamison Creek Culvert Replacement Project. This project may seem several years old at this point. It's because it kind of is. It was principally constructed in 2020. We had some remedial work to do in 21 and a little bit in 22. But this last fiscal year is when we fully and officially closed out the grant funding sources for the project. The city did receive full grant funding for construction implementation. In addition to design, the 2 specific grants we had in this case were from the Wildlife Conservation Board and from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we were happy to close the books on that project officially last year, and fortunately we're able to come in about 10 or 11% under our established budget there. So it was overall a good project. It's held up well, even with a very wet and demanding winter. Things are looking great out there, and so we're very happy to be able to deliver that project. Moving on to projects that have been added, there is a little bit of earthquake flavor to some of these, so just be forewarned. But we have added projects across, I guess what I would call all of our disciplines in public works pretty much. The first is a water project. After the earthquakes we've been having the last couple of years, we've really been noticing some vulnerabilities with our water system going up Carson Woods Road and Newell Drive. So we have added that into the 5-year CIP and would like to work towards making some improvements in there, ultimately to improve the material of construction that's out there. It's a little brittle. It doesn't hold up well to earthquakes, clearly. And also it's a little bit under capacity at some of the city's areas of older infrastructure. So some areas that we could look to make improvements from a resiliency in addition to a capacity improvements. With that, we've budgeted $830,000 over 5 years. This is an area where we would certainly look to leverage some outside funding if we can, because sometimes these types of projects, specifically for earthquake readiness or other vulnerabilities, can be eligible for North Coast Resource Partnership or Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funding. So we'll certainly keep a keen eye out for opportunities to leverage city funds and bring in some outside funding for a project of that scale. Next is the sanitary sewer collections closed circuit television effort. The city is under a settlement agreement with an outside agency wherein we have to camera all of our sewer lines that are over 20 years old within the city, which is pretty much all of them. The city did purchase a sewer camera a few years back, and we have made some good progress. I believe we've gotten about 15 miles of cameraing done, but we have upwards of 55 or 60 miles of sewer pipe in the city. So we are fully staffed and in an area where we're going to be able to continue doing more of those activities internally. But we felt it appropriate in this coming fiscal year to allow for some budget in case we need some extra horsepower from an outside contractor that can come and kind of assist us and make sure that we can meet the terms of the settlement agreement we're under. Next is the 9th Street culvert replacement project. A few years back, we had a failing section kind of near 9th Street and Christian Ridge and Picnic Avenue. It's an area of storm drain infrastructure that we inherited from the county when that area was annexed some time ago. It's an older system. It runs kind of through a gully. It's near some houses. It certainly has some other failing areas, and we know about it at this point. And we'd really like to start to plan to make improvements in those areas. In the areas we have done, we've gotten some nice words from the landowners in and around there that it's, performed better than it ever has. And, we'd certainly like to be able to replicate those improvements going all the way down the hill to P Street, so we can ultimately kind of alleviate some of the, the old infrastructure that's up there. Next is our courtyard generator project. This was actually added, I suppose, to the budget last year when we awarded the construction contract. The city was awarded a grant, a 75% grant match, I believe. No, this one was a 55%, excuse me, from the USDA. We are installing an emergency stationary generator at the city's courtyard, which currently doesn't have any built-in backup power. Contractors actually currently beginning construction activity out there with some potholing and some other activities. So we're excited to get that one going. And the last one is the Monday Club chimney. As I'm sure most folks are aware, the last earthquake was not very kind to the old chimney at the Monday Club. It separated from the building some and forced us to have to go down and take it down right after the event in order to make it safe. City staff are working with an architect to try and get somebody on board so we can start to think about rehabilitation strategies and costs and quotes, all those things. And we are working with the city's risk pool in order to identify how that can be funded and paid for under the city's insurance. So moving on, 2 slides ago I had that we only took one project out of the CIP, which feels somewhat anticlimactic. Of course, we're working on a lot of things, so we also like to showcase all the things that got really close to being taken out, but are probably going to straddle the fiscal year here. The first and probably most notable project is the Roner Park basketball court project. Folks probably seeing the court out there right now. It's got hoops, it's got planters, it's coming along. We're hoping that the construction is completed in about 4 to 6 weeks' time. We're trying to accelerate it to the extent we can, but it's probably going to be right up against rodeo, so we're going to have to figure out, make sure we don't have those two things overlap in a way that's, non-ideal. But I think we have a pathway to get there, and we're really excited to see this one get wrapped up. So we have that. Our contractors working on the courtyard roofing project, they were actually out there working on it today, and at this point we're pretty confident it's actually going to be taken care of in the next few weeks and off the books this year, but we have included it for now just to make sure that we have funding next year, just in case the contractor gets called off and it has to be completed next year. We are really close with our water system emergency generators project, which is installing 2 new stationary generators at booster stations for the city's water system. One actually was completed last week, and we have some commissioning happening this week. The next one will be delivered and installed in July. So we hope by the end of July, so the very, beginning of next fiscal year, we hope to have that one wrapped up and we can close out our grant with Cal OES on that one. And then in the coming months, we'll be looking at doing some more paving. As I'm sure many folks have seen, we did some pavement rehabilitation on North Fortuna Boulevard, kind of by Les Schwab, where it settled down a little bit during the earthquake. We did some pavement rehabilitation on Smith Lane, so now both of those areas just need some striping rehab, which usually happens, before too long after we get the paving done. We're also looking at paving on South Fortuna Boulevard in between Newburgh Road and Redwood Way in the northbound lanes. We're working with our consultants right now on a strategy to rehabilitate that and hope to be doing that work within the next few months. Similarly, we're looking at doing some rehabilitation of the pavement down on the Kenmar interchange area, kind of by the booster station located in between the interchange and then the Ross Hill Road and Kenmar intersection. So other upcoming or ongoing projects we're working on, and I won't go into tremendous detail on any of these, but we also have continued work on our Vansel Reservoir Site Rehabilitation Project. We're working on bringing that new well online down at the city's well field off Eel River Drive, or what we call CCF, or the Corrosion Control Facility. We are actively working on the water tank coating project, which I believe the council is aware. The project is going quite well, actually ahead of schedule, and we're hopeful that we can get that one wrapped up sooner than we had anticipated, but all things are going really well right now. We have a small sewer rehab project that we hope to bid and possibly construct this year. If not, it'll be early next year. The city's contractor, RAO, is currently working out on 12th Street. I'm sure folks have seen the equipment out there, been installing pipe, and I've already poured a couple of rain gardens. They're moving very quickly, and we look to actually hopefully have that one completed ahead of schedule too, barring any major unforeseen circumstances. We are working on wrapping up plans for the first phase, I'll call it, of our ADA barrier removal project, which will include a number of ADA upgrades at curb ramps along Main Street, and then a lot of ADA work on N Street in between the bus stop and the library, which was part of the ADA audit that we got through the county some years back. The Corporation Yard Generator project, I touched on that. And then last but not least, kind of our biggest project, so maybe it should have been first, is the police facility remodel project, which is an ongoing effort. It started a few months ago. It's going quite well at this point. The contractor's making great progress. We're working through a number of issues, as you could imagine, with a remodel project of that extent. But everything's going pretty good, and if anybody has any interest in going down and kind of touring the site or seeing the progress, it's really starting to come together, and it's pretty exciting to see. So last, I'll end with just a few budget slides here. So the first one is just a summary of the 5-year CIP expenditures. So this is what funds projects are being spent, or which funds projects are being paid for in the coming 5 years. So it really kind of tells you where our attention is being focused. And you'll see in green, kind of taking up the lion's share of everything, is our sewer reserve fund for the city's wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. That is probably the biggest project that we're going to be dealing with in the next 5 years, certainly. And so that's why it takes up such a big portion of our overall funding plan during that time. I will note that although it's all shown as coming out of 560 right now, which is the city's sewer reserve fund, we are working on getting the vast majority of that hopefully paid for by state grants. So we hope to not have nearly that level of budgetary impact to city funds in order to complete that project. Otherwise, a nice rounded out mix of water projects, grant funded projects like we're doing with 12th Street Prop 1 right now, local fund and Measure E projects that are doing things like paving or the Newburgh Park expansion projects, things of that nature. And then a little bit, with drainage funds, things of that nature. Moving on to a budget summary for the 23-24 projects that we have planned. A very balanced approach, as you'll see. We've got a little bit of everything next year, and we're excited to be able to kind of, move progress forward on a lot of things, including the city's wastewater treatment plant project, Measure E funded projects such as the police facility and the Newburgh Park expansion, a number of grant funded projects with some of the FEMA grants that we have ongoing, in addition to the Prop 1 grant we're working with 12th Street right now. And then we also are continuing on with some water projects with some water line improvements and continued work down at the water well site. Lastly, a budget summary. This shows next year's work by work phase. So in public works land, you're either planning for a project, you're designing a project, or you're building a project. And we're still in a pretty exciting time where most of our dollars are going towards construction right now. We have a lot of activity, and as you'll see there, 84% of our budgeted expenditures in the CIP next year are for construction-related work. So with that, I'll turn it back to council if council has any questions. But, we had a number of staff work hard on this and continue to complete projects and develop projects and move things forward. And I'm pretty pleased to be presenting this to you all tonight. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions from council? No? I just want to thank you for all the hard work and all the grants you've been getting, and City Manager Merritt, too, for all the grants that you've gotten. Fortuna's been able to get a lot of stuff done with grants. So all of that is pretty exciting. Okay, we'll open public comment. Anybody from the public like to speak on anything?
Somebody works awfully hard around here. This guy. I'm trying to get my head around TV cameras in the sewer system. Does this make sense? Is there an explanation for why we have a TV camera down there
There is.
What are we filming down there?
It's riveting television. It's white knuckle.
I see.
It's a way to inspect the condition. So you can see if there's pipe breaks or roots going through or other issues that you otherwise can't see from the surface. So it informs us where we need to be doing rehabilitation or maintenance activities in the sewer system.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and because it's not a water pipe, which is full all the time, it's usually not very full at all. You run a camera through it and you can see pretty much everything.
Okay, great.
Riveting, like I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Walt, there's not really a show going on down there.
You sure?
Those are the original dirty movies.
Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 five-year capital improvement program and appropriate funding and inclusion of in the fiscal year 23-24 projects into the 23-24 budget.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
We can just do oh no, we have to do that one. Sorry, I got a whole bunch of notes on here. Councilmember Conley,
Aye.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Trent.
Yes. Okay, our next item of business is public hearing regarding Fortuna Business Improvement District's annual assessment. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Trent. Staff is recommending that the council conduct the annual Fortuna Business Improvement District public hearing and consider adoption of Resolution 2023-14 authorizing the annual assessment for the fiscal year 2020-23-24. With regard to the background, at the May 1st regular meeting of the City Council, the council adopted a resolution of intention, a copy which is attached to the staff report. The resolution of intent accomplished three things. One is to approve the FBID annual report as submitted on May 1st, 2023. It declared the council's intention to levy and collect the annual FBID assessment for the fiscal year 2023-24 at the same rates as were collected the prior year. And it provided notice of this public hearing and the right of businesses subject to the annual assessment to submit written or oral protests against the assessment. No protests were received against the proposed assessment for FBID. And as required by law, the resolution of intent and the notice of this public hearing was published in a newspaper of general circulation 7 days prior to the date of this public hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the FBID annual assessment should be levied for fiscal year 2023-24. The council may authorize the assessment unless sufficient written protests against the assessment are received by the city clerk at or before the time fixed for this public hearing. So again, there were no protests against this assessment. With regard to fiscal impact, FBID, the Fortuna Business Improvement District collects approximately $62,000 in assessments annually, and the city contributes an equal amount of approximately $62,000 to bring 124. I believe in this year's fiscal budget, though, $50,000 is proposed, so it would be $10,000, approximately $12,000 less than $124,000. Of that, 62% collected in each of the core areas, returned to those core areas, and the citywide share is spent across the city. 38% is spent across the city. If the council adopts a resolution, there would be no fiscal impact from prior years as the assessment would be maintained at the existing levels. And so with that, staff is recommending that the council adopt the proposed resolution and continue levying the assessment at the same rate as last fiscal year, assuming that there was no successful protest and there were no protests submitted. So that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
More of just a statement.
Okay.
Merritt, I would really like to tell you, and hopefully the whole council would agree with this, that this comes about because of the hard work that you put into this. FBID over the last 2 years was very much faltering. And it's only because of your tenacity and work on this, and I know it wasn't something that you really wanted to take on, but you did. and you did a great job on it, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, but we have it in front of us, and it's working, and we need to congratulate you for the job that you did on this.
Thanks, I appreciate it. There's been a lot of work. I mean, from the past incarnation, our city attorney really helped to reconfigure this and get it to the council, and the council desire and the businesses assessed really expressed their desire. I'll say we still have a little ways to go. We're really trying to streamline the committee and our function and really get to those core things that are in the city's municipal code, which is decorations of downtown, providing music in public places, general promotion of business, and then really keeping an inventory. So it's really tempting to make the business improvement district really complicated. And I think with the help of our volunteer board, including Councilmember Mobley, that, we can get this thing back to really what it's supposed to be. And so this will be exciting. It'll be the first year that we have a staff person that's assigned to FBID. And, I think we're getting to the point where we're really going to be able to see those benefits and start seeing some new banners come out. We've been looking at the different events and how can we choose which ones are the best for the city and, maybe drop some of those that we're not seeing as much benefit from. So we're going to see more of those changes over the next year, whereas last year it was more of a, let's continue those traditional events that the Business Improvement District has done. The chamber deserves some credit for pulling together and doing a lot of those things when we didn't have a staff person. So I do want to thank the chamber for pulling those together. So a lot of people have helped out, and I hope that this year we can really kind of zero in on, again, those core purposes of FBID and keep it simple and fun for our volunteer board.
Well, again, thank you so much for your hard work.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll open public comment. Anybody have a comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Now, we've already determined there's been no protest. Okay, so we can pass that one. So then do we have a motion?
I'll move to adopt Resolution 2023-14 and read by title only.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Resolution 2023-14, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna authorizing the levy of an annual assessment for 2023-2024 fiscal year for the Fortuna Business Improvement District. Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Councilmember Losi?
Yes.
Councilmember Mobley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Trent?
Yes. Okay, our next item is solid waste rate adjustment request. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Trent. I'll be presenting this one.
Wait a second.
Mayor, I have one question.
Sure.
Do I need to recuse myself or just abstain?
For a recusal such as this, you need to announce it and then leave the room.
Okay, I will recuse myself on this item.
Okay, so this should be a pretty brief staff report, and staff's recommendation is that the council approve the solid waste rate adjustment requested by Recology, Inc. to reflect the consumer price index and other increases for the coming fiscal year. And just there's quite a bit of background in the staff report, so I'm not going to go through the background of the franchise agreement back to 1998 when it was originally signed, but I'll give you a brief summary, which is the City of Fortuna entered in a franchise agreement with the Eel River Disposal in 1998 for solid waste and recycling collection. The franchise agreement was transferred to Recology in 2017, and the term of the franchise agreement currently ends in 2025. In accordance with the franchise agreement, rates may be adjusted each year annually based on the consumer price index for the rates effective on July 1st the following year. And so that's what this rate is being requested for under the provisions in that franchise agreement. The consumer price index increase between March 2022 and March 2023 was 5.2%, and Recology submitted a rate adjustment request to the city reflecting that CPI increase of 5.2% and plus an additional increase for solid waste and collection based on increases of the recycling rate. I'll give you more detail on that in a moment. A copy of the request and the calculation are attached to this staff report. The net increase to solid waste collection rates is more than CPI as the recycling fee increased for the Samoa recycling facility, and increased costs for residual solid waste transferred to HWMA are increasing. City staff has reviewed the requested increase for accuracy and reviewed that with Recology staff and determined that the request meets the provisions of the franchise agreement for this type of adjustment. Typically, under the provision 2.03.07 of the franchise agreement, the city manager has the authority to approve consumer price index increases of less than or equal to 3%. However, the city council must approve any consumer price index adjustment greater than 3%. That's why this item is being presented to the city council tonight instead of being approved administratively. And really, it's been a little while since we've had increases that are in excess of the 3%. The last time we did, and when there were some significant changes to disposal costs, there were some other increases. But traditionally, we've been able to approve those administratively for a long period of time, and they've been less than that 3% threshold. There's a brief summary on page 1 of the rate change request that Linda Wise put together, and I'll point out that Linda Wise is here in the audience along with Frank, and they'll be available to answer any questions specifically with regard to this rate request. And if there's a summary on the attachment on page 7 that shows what the prior increases are and what the current, I'm just trying to pull that up real quick. On the attachment, I just want to go to that for a moment. So the most clear spot to look at this is on page 7. And this is a form that we asked Recology to put together when we were looking at these rate increases. And I'd be happy to put it up on the screen if the council wants to see it there. But in the blue, you can see the prior year's rate, and in the black, you can see what the proposed rate. So you can see for the bag service, it'll increase from $7.81 per bag pickup to $8.57. And I'll just give you a few of those. For the 32-gallon can picked up once weekly, it go from $31.11 to $34.17. 45-gallon can would go from $40.51 to $44.55. And so there's a complete breakdown on page 7 of the attachment, again, where you can see in blue last year's and in black the proposed. So with that, that concludes my staff report, and I know that Linda or Frank would be happy to answer any questions, and I would be too.
Okay, we have questions or comments from council? Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
And so, Mayor, just so I understand, per the franchise agreement, the increase normally would be what the consumer price index increase is, which is 5.2%. But because of the increases that Recology has with regard to dumping with these other entities, then they're requesting with residential 30-gallon service 9.8%. And with commercial 1-yard service, an 11.4%. Is that correct?
Right, and that's effective increase, so there's two parts of it. And again, Linda might be able to answer this better, but the first part is the 5.2% CPI, which is applied. And then the other portion is there's increased costs for recycling. So when all the recyclables are collected, they're taken to Recology's Samoa facility. And then of that, there's the recycling that's taken out and either sold or otherwise dealt with. And then there's a portion that's called the residual, which is actually trash that people put in their recycling. It's why it's really important for folks to understand what they throw in recycling. There's a lot of wishful recycling. And so the costs have gone up significantly for the disposal of that residual or the trash that's mixed in with recycling. And so people think it's free garbage. Well, it's not. This is where it comes back in. And so what Recology does, and we count on this analysis, Recology submits the increase to HWMA, and they review that increase to look at it and make sure that's a fair and equitable increase for that tipping fee at the Samoa facility. And so there's a component, there's a 5.2 increase on what the services are Recology's providing, and then there's actually the tipping fee at the Samoa processing facility. Similarly, we pay Recology the actual price for the tipping fee at the landfill when they go there, and those aren't subject to the same 5.2% increase. Those are a direct pass-through. So if you want more detail, it looks like Linda could give you a little bit more summary, or if I went astray there somewhere. Go ahead.
No, that's correct. It is, I just want to add to that is just the importance of keeping the recycling clean is right now for the amount of money that's charged to the ratepayers to the city of Fortuna for recycling at the curbside is about $135,000 a year. The cost of the garbage that's being put in the recycling is $33,750. And so that's the cost of doing that, is from having to transport that up to the recycling facility, pull the garbage out, and then transport it to a transfer station. So although the one of the things that's the CPI is on the collection component of at the curbside with the trucks and the people that are coming to the curbside to pick up the garbage, and the other part is disposal. So and another part is recycling processing fee, and those are the three things that make up your rates every year. So that's how we come to that price.
Have you tried to lower those costs with garbage going into recycles by education?
We don't currently have, as part of any of our franchise agreements or our agreement with HWMA, to do any public outreach or education. We try to do a tagging system with the users of the systems. We're trying to educate them at the curbside to try them to get to use it correctly. I think in the coming years, we'll start to employ some people to start doing more public education, because you're right, it's very confusing. And also there's nobody actually monitoring, you know, what's underneath the recycling on the top part of the can. So it's something that we're looking forward to, a service that we're looking forward to provide.
I just have a problem with the CPI coming in at 5.2, and you're asking for 9.8 from residential, and from commercial 11.4, but everybody knows the commercial cost increase will just get passed on to all of us, their customers. And so, those people, in particular, those people that are on fixed incomes, they might get an adjustment in those incomes based on the consumer price index. Some of those happen. Social Security, for instance, maybe some pensions. But for the most part, they have to live within that 5.2 or the consumer price index, where you're coming forward and asking for over and above the 5.2%. And I've got a problem with that, and I'm not sure if we keep it at the 5.2%, as the city, are we able to do that? What effect would that have?
Well, again, I think it's a question of looking at, so the 5.2% has been applied to the things that Recology actually does, and the things they touch and the things that they process. So it's the truck drivers, it's the people, there's an administrative component, it's the work that Recology is doing. It's not the pass-through. And what they're looking, what makes that effective rate higher than 5.2% is that the cost of disposal at the recycling center has gone up. And so it's really not an increase that, even though Recology owns the processing facility, it's really a separate function. It'd be the same as if the landfill increased the rates. They'd still pass that on, and the city would be responsible for paying the increased rate at the landfill. So they're seeing a 5.2% across the board on the Recology service and the Recology labor, but not where they're disposing. So it happens in this case that the disposal facility is also operated by Recology. So, I don't really think we have a choice. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to see a higher bill, but really when those, I think it's fair to have that disposal cost, at that facility that everybody in the county is paying be the same. So if you wanted to say, we don't want to pay more than the 5.2%, essentially you'd be saying, okay, Recology, we don't want to pay the same recycling cost that every other jurisdiction in the county is paying at that facility.
So why isn't it the responsibility of this Recology to negotiate with where they're dumping for the reduction of their fees? Why are we passing that on to our citizens and businesses?
We do that. Yeah. We do negotiate for contracts for disposal and for transportation. maybe people don't know is that we truck our garbage 300 miles round trip out of here. And everybody has been experiencing increases in fuel in particular. So transportation is something that's really had a hard hit with services like ours. Is if you have to drive over there, our fuel prices have gone up like 49% over the last couple of years. And so that's encapsulated into the disposal fees. And there's been a lack of backhaul availability coming back into the county because of a demise of one of our portions of our economy that has also increased the transportation costs in and out of this county. So that's the reason why disposal has gone up.
I understand that. I have a problem with going over and above the agreed upon CPI.
And again, that increase isn't going to Recology other than to pay for that separate facility.
I understand that
Yeah.
too, but again, that's something that should be negotiated between them and the facility that's charging them the increased price.
Well, and again, talking to Linda about this, and she could explain that, they negotiate the price at, we're at the point of disposal at the landfill, and then they're very much looking at the Recology facility for recyclables in a similar way that, this is a cost per ton to get dropped off of recyclables at that sorting facility. And so there is an increase, but it's relative to the direct cost that they've actually calculated for dealing with those recyclables. And again, it's really going up because of the contamination of those recyclables, people throwing in dirty things that can't be recycled. So they're not seeing that profit on top of the work they're doing under the contract. The cost that's going up is as a result of the increased fee to drop off that material. And again, we're paying the same fee that everybody else in the county is. So the 5.2 is the increase that they're seeing, and the rest is really just at the point of disposal of those. So I'm not sure how to explain that
No, I
differently.
understand what you're saying, and I
Yeah.
understand the, that portion where you're going to have to remove items that don't belong in recycle. Again, that's, education. But anyway, that's my feeling.
Well, one thing I might add is we're right now, we're going through a pretty significant negotiation on the franchise agreement. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at very closely is the education and outreach component for organic waste. We'll be bringing universal collection, which means everybody in the city will be required to have solid waste, recycling, green waste, organic waste. So we're on the verge of that right now. Actually, I think the next item is to extend that timeline out because we can't meet the deadlines that we have to for SP 1383. And so a big part of that will be the education and outreach that will come as a part of that, it won't just touch organics, it'll touch all of the disposal collection. So I'm not sure if I can answer your question in a different way, Councilmember Losi.
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand what Linda says, but is saying. That's my feeling.
But you just don't like it.
I don't like
I don't
it
like
either.
it. And I'm
I don't think anybody likes it, but I know in the past that they used to go out and survey the recycling containers. Like you said, you can't see what's down at the bottom.
Right.
But I've driving around town, every once in a while, I see one with bags of garbage piled out the top and all, and I have seen some of those tagged. Do they still do a survey?
We do, as part of our regular route activities with the drivers, is they will regularly tag the cans. If we see repeats, we'll elevate it to a manager to try and get in contact with the users of the systems. But as far as the evaluations go, is that now that we have the recycling processing facility here and we know what routes that they're coming off of, so at the recycling processing facility, we're able to see where the material is coming from, what's all inside of it, where it's coming from. So if there's problem neighborhoods or something like that, we can concentrate on those areas to try to, tag and try to keep a closer eye on. But it's very difficult to just do like just look at the top layer and to be able to assess what's in there.
Is there like you've got the rate sheets, is there a sheet talking about what can and can't be recycled on the website or anything?
Well, we have this program that's called wetbin.com. So if people wanted to say, I've got like aluminum foil, you can put aluminum foil in there and they'll ask you if it's got food on it or not. And if it has food in it, it says put it in the trash. If not, put it in the recycling. So there's a way of doing that because it's just, and it's something that we're improving on all the time because you can imagine, there's new stuff being made all the time.
Yeah. I know, like, used to, everybody wanted film, and now it's, everybody wants film out of the
We don't want film. Yeah.
Well, they used to.
Yeah, you can
Back-
take it to the grocery store.
Yeah, so, all right.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from council?
I think you have to open it up for public comment yet, and then I'm ready to make a motion.
Do anybody else in the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
I will go ahead and move to approve the solid waste rate adjustment with Recology to reflect the consumer price index increase of 5.2 only, 5.2%.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Does Councilmember Mobley have to come back? Does she have to recuse herself from the next one too, or?
No.
No? Okay, Councilmember Mobley? Okay, our next item is organic waste disposal ordinance revision, ordinance 2023-761. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Trent. We'll have a solid waste. Linda might be able to help weigh on this one as well today. So staff is recommending that the council hold a public hearing, conduct a first reading of ordinance 2023-761, revising chapter 8.14 to the Fortuna organic waste disposal reduction regulations that implement and enforce CalRecycle organics regulations and SB 1383 compliance date from July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024. And so one of the reasons we're doing this, there's a lot of things that are getting delayed in this rollout. And first of all, I'll give you a little bit of background in the summary, but the staff report includes some of that background and the state's goals by SB 1383 to achieve a 50% reduction of organic waste disposed of in landfills by 2020 and 75% 2025. And they also set a goal to reduce at least 20% of the currently disposed of edible food by 2025 and redirect that food to people in need. Ordinance 2022-755 was adopted by the council on June 2nd, 2022 to satisfy the city's requirement to adopt a forcible ordinance with implementation of the requirements delayed until January 1st, 2023. The council subsequently adjusted the timeline to July 1st, 2023 by ordinance 2022-757 due to delays in negotiating the franchise agreement and the availability of equipment to process the organic waste and a lack of a location to be able to take that and collect that and transport that organic waste to a suitable facility to recycle it. Currently, staff is still negotiating the franchise agreement changes with our franchise waste hauler, Recology, and we don't anticipate being able to complete the franchise agreement changes until sometime within the next 6 months or around the beginning of 2024. Therefore, staff is recommending that we delay the effective date until July 1st, 2024. Additionally, Recology does not anticipate having necessary equipment to implement the mandatory collection bins and trucks of organic solid waste, and there's not a regional facility that can process that organic waste for recycling. So even if we could pick up the organic waste, we're not going to have anywhere to take it to. Right now, there's an effort by HWMA to convert their old recycling tipping floor to a location, to bring in the equipment to be able to take that organic waste, to be able to separate the plastics and process it to go to a suitable facility. And at this point, they've applied for a grant. They're hoping that the grant funds will come to the community to pay for a large portion of that. But once they have the grant funds approved, then they'll have to go through a whole design, permitting, and construction phase. And so that's really what we're waiting for before we can collect that organic waste. So with that, I thought about bringing this back and proposing a postponement until just January 1st, 2024. And then I just, we've already brought this back, delayed it once. This will be the second time. And I just didn't want to keep bringing this back every 6 months. And so that's why I put it until July 1st, 2024. I'd rather come back and say, hey, we're going to be able to get this organic waste moving before then, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And so with this, I push it out till July 1st, 2024. And I will point out, Councilmember Johnson did email me. There's a move between a lot of rural counties where they'd like to see SB 1383 proposed. I kind of doubt that's going to happen. I kind of like the idea, but I think if you give all the rural areas a lot more time to do this, they'll take a lot more time. And right now, we're making pretty good progress locally on SB 1383. And I'll just remind the council, a big part of our effort, the main task that we have is negotiating the franchise agreement with Recology to be able to provide universal collection organic waste. We're working collaboratively with the county on the portion for food recovery, which is taking the food from producers of edible food from producers and repurposing it through food recovery organizations and getting it to people who need it. So we're working with the county on that. And they're in the process of contracting with the food recovery organization. And then the other part is the collection, and we're working with Recology to be able to collect that food waste, and they're looking at doing an RFP to be able to identify what facility that food waste, that organic waste will go to once they get their tipping floor up and going. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and again, we've had great regional collaboration, and we're kind of going in with all the other cities thinking that why should we each all do this independently and create all those capabilities, and we're working together. So I think the city's going to see significant savings. I will say that the state did not really include a funding source. We did get one grant for $20,000. We talked about solid waste rates earlier. So in the absence of grants, I think the state's assumption is that we will raise solid waste rates to be able to pay for all of this. So this is, an example of one of those mandates that really hits every individual through the solid waste rates. And really that's where we're heading to pay for these services, and increasing solid waste rates to be able to pay for this organic collection in the long term. And so again, it's a result of state legislation. It's not something the city chose to do. It's a good idea. It's good for the environment. But again, it's, how do we keep those costs as low as possible, given that the city's in a position to have to implement the state mandate. So again, good intentions, but it's going to cost everybody a little bit more money. So that includes my staff report, and the recommendation is to adopt ordinance number 20, conduct the first reading of ordinance number 2023-761.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Yeah, just a comment that this is one of those things where the state has come in with a one-size-fits-all approach, cookie cutter, and it doesn't fit that way. If you live in an area that's dense residential and lots of business that generates organic waste, that's one thing. But they've tried to do this with HSU when it was still HSU, before it was Cal Poly Humboldt, collected the food waste and trucked it out, and it just never worked. And they talked about building a food digester unit, and it never got off the ground. And we're kind of still in the same place with the same problem and the same issues, except now we're being leveraged into somebody's idea of what will work. And they're not here to see that their idea doesn't work for here. So we're stuck with another mandate.
Yeah, that's the state for you. I understand that probably half of the cities and counties are not prepared to be able to move forward with this 1383. And there are groups out there right now trying to pressure Cal Recycle to push back their start dates. Whether that's going to happen or whether they're going to be successful with Cal Recycle, who knows? Cal Recycle has been bent on trying to get this through to cut greenhouse gas emissions. But like Mike said, that it just, maybe in cities, maybe in large cities, and it might work. It's more that the state piles on small entities like Fortuna, and passing on the cost of this program is, they don't provide any assistance for consumers. It's all going to be passed on to us. So I understand the resolution, and that we probably need to pass that.
Mayor Trent, if I could just add one more comment too, is, the city, Cal Recycled issued a compliance action plan that really, it requires that the city report monthly, and we have bi-monthly calls with Cal Recycled to report our progress. And the real threat is if we don't justify that we're making progress, and we have the threat of fines. And so right now, really, I'm the lead staff person on, kind of writing up what our response is, putting that together, giving it back to Cal Recycle, and doing regular reporting. And so this date would get put into that compliance action plan as our target date for when we would start providing these services. And so really that's kind of where the hammer is that compliance action plan. And if we don't make suitable progress, or at least in Cal Recycle's opinion, then they would consider implementation of fines.
And I don't know how they're going to be able to fine half of the cities and counties in California. They probably would try, but
They've got a budget deficit. They want the money.
it's true.
Any comments? None? Okay, we'll open public comment. Anybody in the public like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do we have a motion?
Motion to conduct first reading of ordinance 2023-761 by title and continue with the public hearing to June 20th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ordinance 2023-761, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fortuna, California, amending Title 8, Health and Safety of the Fortuna Municipal Code by revising Chapter 8.14, Organic Reduction and Recycling Ordinance. Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Councilmember Losi?
I'll vote yes, but I'm holding my nose because it's stinky.
Councilmember Mobley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Trent?
Yes. Okay, our next item is a public hearing, first reading for construction and demo ordinance. And do we have to vote on continuing that, or can we just continue it?
Yeah, so the request from staff, we're not quite ready with our construction and demolition debris ordinance, and so we're asking the council vote to continue this item to 6/20/2023, so we don't have to re-advertise it, and the council can take it up at that time.
Okay, so do we need a motion to continue?
Please.
Okay, do I have a motion to continue?
I make a motion, we continue business item H to 6/20/2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is that a roll call or voice? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we got through those pretty quickly. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Trent. Just a few items to report. As typical, I'll go through some of our meetings scheduled. Our next regular council meeting will be on June 20th at 6:00 p.m. And it is likely that we will request to cancel the July 3rd meeting. It's right in the middle of the holiday, and it's the city's annual 3rd of July fireworks event. So right now at this point, we're planning on requesting a cancellation for the July 3rd meeting. Our next planning commission meeting will be on June 13th at 6:00 p.m. Our next Measure E meeting is a little further out there, September 19th at 5:30. Our next Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting will be this Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. at City Council Chambers. And our next Fortuna Business Improvement District meeting is on June 27th at 8:30 a.m. I just have a few items to present in my report. I had a number of presentations that I made to the public over the last couple of weeks. On June 1st, on June 17th, I presented the Community Economic Resilience Consortium on the current economic climate in the city and economic development projects with an emphasis on the mill site. On June 24th, I had the opportunity to co-present with the City of Arcata to a leadership impact group organized by Redwood Capital Bank at the Ingomar Club, and they were really interested to hear about what the city is doing for housing and what the outlook is for housing in the future with the special focus on, is how is housing affecting our economy, and how is it an impediment really to economic development. A lot of the agencies focusing on economic development are really zeroing in on housing and healthcare, which, seems the opposite, but, it's one of those critical ingredients that the county's struggling with. And then that was May 17th and May 24th. On June 1st, I presented at the noon Rotary meeting on current topics, a lot of the ones that I covered in the Community Economic Resilience Consortium. And it was interesting to hear some of the feedback from Rotary on some of the draft plans for the mill site. And we're really anxious to bring some of the mill site concept plans. We're working through a concept plan the developer brought, really to incorporate the things that we'd like to see go into the city-specific plan, and we're hoping to be conducting public meetings later this summer to really share that with the community and get that vision out there and get that feedback prior to going to the Planning Commission and being able to move that specific plan forward. I appreciated Brendan kind of giving some updates on the Monday Club chimney and basketball courts. I will say that the police facility, it's really exciting to get out there and see some of the framing done so you can walk through the building and see what incredible change it'll be. Or, for example, the dispatch office will be able to accommodate 4 desks, and essentially we have a small closet right now, but to see a really small substandard facility go to something where the dispatchers have plenty of room, they can be spread out, they're right across the street from a kitchen and bathroom, a nice sized briefing room and conference room. It seems really small when you look at it on the plans, but being able to start walking through there as they get the framing done, you really get a sense of what a nice facility that's going to be. So maybe once the framing gets done, if any council members want to go out there and kind of have a walkthrough and a sneak peek to look at it, I'll hesitate to say we're at a midway point because it always feels like it when you get framing and drywall, but then after drywall, you're usually maybe halfway. So, but you can really get a sense for the space, and it's pretty exciting to be able to see that moving forward. And it's going to be a really nice facility for our police force. And then just lastly, I had the opportunity to do an interview with Mary Bullwinkle. It's been 10 years since the Stewart Reservoir was put into service, and she wanted to know how it went. It was a very challenging project, and we had, a slip out on Stewart Street, and it was really kind of a big deal to get this really nice pre-stressed post-tension concrete tank in there. And it's the first one, I think, that there is in Humboldt County. And, I hadn't really thought much about it. And I called Chris Christensen, our treatment plant operator. I said, Chris, have you had any issues with this? And it's like, that tank just sits up there and does its job. It goes through earthquakes. It went through the fire at the Star Hotel right after that tank was finished. We had the fire at the Star Hotel, and to have an extra 1 million gallons at that site, that's the kind of water facilities that we want. We don't have to go recoat it every year. Just occasionally we have to clean the sediment out of the bottom. So it's one of those examples of a city project that we haven't had to think a lot about, and it's really just doing what it's supposed to do. It sits up there and stores water and doesn't take a lot of maintenance. So hadn't really thought much about it. And anyway, I just wanted to share that with the council, that tank is up and in service and not requiring a whole lot like some of our other tanks. We won't have to recoat it in the future. So that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Does council have any requests for any future agenda items? Okay, we'll move on to council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Conley.
Thank you. Like I said last time, the REDAC was canceled last month, so I don't really have anything there, but I do want to commend Cameron and your staff. The parks look amazing, and seeing people out there in the sun and enjoying the parks, so good job on that, and it looks great out there. Thank you.
Councilmember Losi.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. May 17th, I attended the regular LAFCO meeting at Eureka City Hall, and it was a short meeting. It wasn't all that long. We finalized the budget for 23-24, and there will be no increases, no increase of fees to any of the agencies that pay into it. And we had a preview of the draft agency for profiles for the South County Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence, which included Alder Point County Water District and Phillipsville Community Services District. So that concluded the reviews for the South County, which were about 8 different entities that we looked at. And that was really about the only issues, those 2 things. On last Friday, I went to the first Friday on Main Street here in Fortuna. And they closed off the street from 9th to 12th. And they had different venues, different tents were up, and some of the stores were open. And one of the things that they had out there, they had a band, and that was nice. But if you look at the screen, they had fire dancers. It was a fire show, and this is the Lost Coast Fusion. I don't know anything about them, except that they put on a heck of a show. They had, I would guess, 15 dancers, and they had, various, torches going on, and they didn't flip I didn't see any of them flip the fire up, or the torches up like they do in Hawaiian dances and things like that. But these flames are coming really close to these folks, and some of these they wrap around their necks and juggle these things around their necks. If you've never seen them, it's well worth going to watch them. They put on a show that was about 30, maybe 40 minutes long, and then he took a short 15, 20-minute break and then came back on and did another show, 30, 40 minutes long, and they went all the way up until 9 o'clock doing this fire show. So I was very impressed, and the crowd, the people watching were very impressed with it. For the first Friday of the season, we had a good turnout. It'll only increase as the summer goes on. And then Saturday was the citywide yard sale, and I came down to Main Street on that and had a really good turnout. We had lots of tables up and lots of people selling a lot of things. I didn't buy anything. My grandchildren did. They had money to spend, so we took them down there. But it was a good program and had a good turnout of people. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Mobley?
We had an FBID meeting. We've been doing some lengthy discussions on banner placement and banner advertising. Hopefully we're going to streamline those meetings a little bit in the future. A lot of good ideas, but we need to streamline a little bit. Our CEA, we are working on the budget, so there wasn't really much discussion there other than budget items, which we all know how that goes with budgets. I did want to take the opportunity to share with everyone, I don't know if they know, that the Fortuna Chamber hosted an awards dinner on May 4th. And there were a couple of awards given that I wanted to acknowledge. And one was Volunteer of the Year, which was given to Mayor Tammy Trent, which is very well deserved.
Thank you.
Very well deserved. Another one was Outstanding Citizen of the Year, which was given to Walt Wilson. And Walt, unfortunately, was not able or was not in attendance, but it was also very well deserved. I worked with Walt on the Measure E Committee. Amazing job. This is a person that is so committed to our community. If we had half the community as committed, it would be a great place. So I just wanted to thank you and Mayor Trent.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Johnson. I mean, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Get that right.
Last month, we had our regular meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments, HCOG, and we had two presentations, one on Clean California, which when you hear that, you automatically think of litter and roadside cleanups, but there's much more to that. The murals under the Samoa Bridge was part of Clean California. The parklet on Vance Avenue, which doesn't feel like it, but it's under the Samoa Bridge also on the east side, is or north side, was an area that was habitually was a dumping ground. So they turned it into a parklet, cleaned it up. There's more people going there, and there's no more dumping going on there. So there's a lot of different components to Clean California. The first thing I thought of was the median down where North Main Street comes in down there by the freeway, right by Double D's and C. Crane. I've been talking for years about something as an entrance to gateway to town, and that there's some property there that we could do something on. But anyways, that's just my idea, not everybody else's. We also saw a video on Humboldt is Home, which was done by a local artist, Sequoia Falk Kellogg, as part of the Regional Early Action Planning multimedia grants for housing. And this was to make people aware of what's going on with our segment of society. And there were people in that video that had been homeless, got a tiny home. They said the biggest part that was great to them was to have a shower. And they did that, and they were able to get a job, and now they're in apartments. So there is a progression in there. And unfortunately, there's a segment of society that is in a place that would take a lot of more work and treatments, but there are some success stories. Following that, we did our unmet transit needs findings and saw a presentation on the Core Hub from the Offshore Wind Project, the Community Benefits Network, and part of it's the port infrastructure and seeing that all done. The biggest part, I think, that I'm interested in is the local workforce, that the jobs go to people that live in Humboldt County, and the training starting ahead of time so that people will be able to get a job on that project and they will be ready to go to work. Our local workforce, our community college education system, apprenticeship programs, all getting together to develop the workforce to work on that project because it's going to generate a lot of jobs. And we want to see local people on that. And that's the biggest thing that happened during my last term. There is a meeting with Caltrans this coming Wednesday for the North State deal, and I'll report out on that the next meeting. And that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sure a lot of the community saw the vandalism in Fortuna last week, the spray painting. It's happening right out on public roads. So if you see anybody spray painting the signs or buildings or anything, please call the police right away. Our parks crew does such a good job keeping the parks up, but when they have to stop all of that and go out and repaint, and get that taken care of, they're very quick to get that taken care of and keep our city looking nice. So I just want to encourage anybody, if you see anything suspicious, it'll save the city a lot of money if we can stop those before they happen or while they're happening. So thank your crew very much for getting that done quickly and keeping our city looking nice. But that's very sad to see, people that are out there being destructive like that. Have to make selling spray paint illegal.
It almost is.
Yeah. But it's just frustrating when we have such a nice looking city and we work hard to keep it that way, and then we have vandals that come do that kind of stuff. So that's very discouraging. The July 3rd festival is coming up. I'm on that committee. We're working hard to make it a festival like we had before COVID. So it should be a lot of fun. It'll be now down on Newburgh Park. We do it the day before 4th of July so everybody can enjoy their families on 4th of July. So we're going to have a nice fireworks show, vendors, all kinds of stuff going on down there. And I just want to encourage everybody that comes to please pick up your garbage when you leave, because the crew, which is a handful of us people, are there till midnight picking up garbage after everybody. We do a lot to plan this nice event, so please help us out and come to that. It'll be fun. And my last item was the citywide garage sale and lemonade day. This year on Lemonade Day, we have kids who set up their lemonade stands and all over town, and I went and visited those this year as the mayor, gave them my card and gave them each a donation, and talked to them a little bit about their business that they were doing. And it was so fun talking to these young people, and some of them had very elaborate lemonade stands. And it's not just a glass of lemonade. They had lemon cookies or lemon other stuff, homemade lemonade. So it was really fun to go talk to them. And I think that's it for my report. Our next item is adjourn to closed session. We have conference with real property negotiator, pursuit section 54956.8 of the government code, vacant land along the Eel River, 1320 Riverwalk Drive, negotiating party, city manager Merritt Perry for the city of Fortuna, and land, I'm not exactly sure how to say that other name, EMKE.
M-Key.
Oh, as negotiating parties under negotiating price and terms of payment. So we need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I make a motion, we adjourn to closed session.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.